I want you to picture something for a second. Just picture the perfect house.
Okay.
And I don't mean a literal building with, a white picket fence, although maybe that's part of it for you. I mean the house of you.
Right. Your life architect.
Exactly. You've spent the last, I don't know, 5, maybe 10 years building this thing. You've got the blueprints all mapped out.
Which are your habits?
Your habits, your routines. You've got the foundation poured, so that's your sleep schedule, your macros, your morning sunlight exposure.
Heavy lifting.
Yeah. And then you've got the interior decoration, your career path, your curated Instagram feed, your perfectly balanced investment portfolio.
It's the optimized self. I mean, it's really the great project of the 21st century. We're all basically just construction workers on the job site of our own lives.
We are. You are the foreman, you're the architect, and you're the bricklayer all at once. You're tracking your root square, you're optimizing your iterators, keeping your delineators in check.
Making sure every single metric is moving up and to the right.
Yeah, right. And on paper, the house is magnificent. It's a marvel of modern engineering. But here is the problem, and this is the thing that keeps coming up in the feedback we get, in the emails, in just the sheer exhaustion I hear from people.
Yeah.
You are standing inside this perfect house, and you feel like a total stranger.
You feel like a stressed out mechanic pacing around a mansion.
Yes. That is exactly it. You're looking at the walls, you're checking for cracks, you're constantly worried about the roof caving in. You are completely separate from the structure you built.
Because you built the house to feel safe, to feel at home.
But you're just the maintenance guy. You're the janitor of your own existence.
Which is a tragic place to end up. And that's what we call the wall of optimization. It's a very specific kind of burnout.
It really is.
Because you can spend decades, literally your whole life, perfecting the content of your life, the skills, the bank account, the body fat percentage, but you never actually change the context of who is living it.
You're still the same anxious subject staring at a slightly better object. And that, right there, is the pivot point. That's why we are doing this deep dive today. We are not talking about adding another room to the house.
No more Notion templates.
Right, no more time management hacks or finding a new morning routine. We are talking about what happens when the builder disappears into the building.
Which sounds very poetic, but as we're going to see today, it's actually incredibly technical.
It's highly technical.
Oh.
We have a stack of source documents here that is, honestly, it's bizarre. It reads like a mix between a neuroscience textbook, a cyberpunk novel, and maybe a monk's private diary.
It's a wild read.
It really is. It's a documented log of a traveler, that's what the source calls the protagonist, who undertook a 7-day experiment. And the goal wasn't to improve themselves. The goal was to run a neurometallurgical experiment to literally physiologically rewire their brain.
And we need to be very clear right off the bat for everyone listening. This isn't just thinking happy thoughts.
No.
The term neurometallurgical isn't just jargon. It implies a real mechanism. They're using language, specifically poetry and sound, to alter neural pathways.
So before we get into the actual daily logs, which, spoiler alert, involve some pretty intense physical meltdowns, let's unpack that name. Neurometallurgical. It sounds like something you'd buy at a biohacking conference for $5,000.
It really does.
What are we actually looking at here?
So it breaks down into a 3-part mechanism. First, you have neuro. This refers to the hardware, the wetware inside your skull. Specifically, we are looking at neuroplasticity and the default mode network, or the DMN.
The DMN. We've touched on this before in other deep dives. That's the me center, right?
Yeah. Think of the DMN as the narrator. It's the part of the brain that stitches together your past, your future worries, and your identity into a cohesive story.
Like a running monologue.
Exactly. It's the voice that says, I am me, I am separate from that chair, and I am really worried about that email I sent yesterday.
The voice that just never shuts up.
Precisely. It's always humming in the background. Now, the second part is meta. This refers to metaphysical awareness. It's the ability to pull the camera back.
So observing.
Right. Instead of being the angry person, you observe the anger. You observe the observer.
And the logical part. Because poetry doesn't usually scream logic to me.
That's the tool. They used a specific riddle, or a koan, designed to actually break binary logic. Normal logic is usually A is not B. You are not the wall. But this experiment uses a metalogical riddle to force the brain to process A is B.
And the goal of smashing these 3 things together, the neuroplasticity, the meta-awareness, and breaking the logic, is what the source calls neuroplastic freedom.
Right. And freedom here has a very specific definition. It's not about doing whatever you want. It's moving your baseline state of consciousness from duality, which is me versus the world, to a baseline of unity.
Meaning I am the experience.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's the theory. But the methodology is where this gets completely wild, because this traveler didn't just sit on a cushion and wait for enlightenment to strike.
No, they essentially went to war with their own brain.
They really did. They used Trigger Music Spotify playlists specifically designed to hit the limbic system somatic body scanning and this central cryptic artifact. A poem called Who is the Grin?
Who is the Grin? It sounds like a fantasy novel title, doesn't it?
Totally.
But in this context, it's a linguistic lever. It's a crowbar for the mind.
Let's dive into section 1 here, the core artifact. We need to really look at this poem because the traveler used it as the anchor for the entire 7 days. Who or what is the Grin?
So in the mythology of this experiment, the Grin is a threshold guardian. You see this archetype everywhere in literature.
Like the Sphinx.
Exactly. The Sphinx at the gates of Thebes, or the bridge keeper in Monty Python. It's the figure standing at the gate of understanding. And to pass, you must answer the riddle.
But usually the monster is outside of you.
Right. But here, the Grin isn't an external monster. It's a part of the traveler's own psyche. It's the gatekeeper of identity itself.
I want to read the first stanza from the source material because I have to admit, when I first read this, I thought it was just bad grammar.
A lot of people do.
It felt like someone trying way too hard to be deep. But you're telling me the grammar glitch is actually the point. So here it is, quote, "Who is the Grin? For in is I, wherever the other is, I be. Upon whatever either lifts, the other shall see," end quote.
Okay, stop right there. Wherever the other is, I be. It sounds like a pirate, right?
It does. It sounds like Pirate Yoda.
Pirate Yoda is actually a great way to put it, but look at what that bad grammar is actually doing to your brain. Standard English is dualistic. It's built on subject, verb, object.
Right, I see the cup.
Yes, the subject, see the verb, the cup, the object. You literally cannot speak proper English without separating yourself from the world. The language forces a split.
So when the poem says for in is I, it's deliberately creating a syntax error.
Exactly, it's a glitch. In is usually a preposition. It indicates location. I is a pronoun. It indicates identity. The poem is forcing your Broca's area, the language center of the brain, to treat a location and an identity as interchangeable variables.
It's an equation, in equals I.
It's a metalogic equation. The source material explains that usually we see experience as a dual frame. There is me over here, and there is that object over there.
Two separate things.
But the poem argues for the single frame concept. The act of experiencing is unbroken. There isn't a seer and a seen. There is just seeing.
The poem goes on, upon whatever either looks, the other shall see.
Right. If I look at the world is also looking at me because we are the exact same substance. It's trying to collapse the distance between the camera and the scene being filmed.
This gets even trippier in the second and third stanzas. The traveler writes, "Let neither in nor the other be of significant namelet, neither appear, only as kin do they remain."
Kin, that is the key word there. That's the bridge.
Kinship. But usually we think of kin as family. Blood relatives, like my cousin is my kin.
Yes, but here it's ontological kinship. The experiment is trying to shift the brain from either-or thinking, which is binary, logical, separative to kinship.
Seeing the connection.
Realizing that the observer, the self, and the observed the world are kin. They are made of the exact same stuff, awareness.
The source text mentions a specific technique the traveler used to visualize this. They called it eye on door. Now, reading about this, it sounds a little bit like staring at a wall until you go crazy, but walk us through it.
It's a visualization technique, but it is intense. The traveler would sit facing a physical door in their room, just a boring, regular wooden door. And they would imagine an eye on the door looking back at them.
So a literal staring contest with a piece of wood.
Essentially, yes. But the goal was to watch yourself, watching the door, until the distinction blurred. Normally, you feel the arrow of attention going out from you to the door.
Right.
This exercise forces you to feel the arrow coming back, and eventually the two arrows meet in the middle, and the line just disappears.
It blurs until, as the poem says, neither appear, only as kin do they remain.
You aren't just looking at the door. You become the seeing that is happening between you and the door.
And then we get to the climax of the poem, stanza 4 and 5. The source describes this as the gateway. It says, "In is the gate by name and by heart. Within am I the final claim."
This is the dimensional shift. The text describes dimensions: width, weight, height, depth, Equalizing.
Equalizing.
Yes. And this isn't just poetic fluff. It's describing a real phenomenological shift in how the brain processes space.
Phenomenological shift. Okay, that's a $10 word right there. Break that down for the listener who is currently doing the dishes or driving to work.
It means the felt sense of reality changes. You know how when you're watching a 3D movie and suddenly the image pops out at you?
Yeah.
It's a sudden shift in perception. Here, when the subject view collapses into the object, the world's spatial boundaries feel completely different. You don't feel like you're here looking over there, you just feel everywhere.
The master formula from the source sums it up perfectly. N equals I equals self equals 1.
Simple math, but almost impossible to hold in a normal state of mind.
And that brings us to the actual experiment itself, because this traveler didn't just write a poem, read it once, and call it a day. They logged a 7-day progression of trying to install this software into their brain.
Yeah, they did.
And let me tell you, looking at the data in these logs, this was not a peaceful yoga retreat.
No, not at all. And honestly, this is what I appreciate so much about this source material. Usually, spiritual diaries are all love and light and floating on clouds. This one reads like a bare-knuckle struggle.
Let's look at section 2, the 7-day progression. The setup involved using music as a neural tuning fork. Why music? Why not just sit in silence?
Because silence allows the logical brain to take over. If you just sit in silence, within a minute you start making grocery lists.
Or stressing about an email.
Exactly. Music, specifically the trigger music mentioned in the logs, which seems to be these emotionally charged rhythmic tracks, bypasses those cognitive filters.
It sneaks in the back door.
Exactly. It hits the limbic system, the emotional center of the brain, directly. It accesses pre-verbal memory structures like the hippocampus and the amygdala.
So it's a workaround.
Right. By pairing these emotional triggers with the grin riddle, the traveler was basically trying to hack their own nervous system, to force it to accept a new truth before the logical brain could reject it.
But the nervous system fought back. Hard. Days 1 and 2 in the log are labeled the friction phase, and the notes describe actual physical pain, somatic winces, chest constriction, throat tightness, jaw clenching.
The body was completely rebelling.
And here's a hard metric that jumped out at me. Their HRV heart rate variability dropped by 8%. Now, for those listening who don't track this stuff on a smartwatch, HRV is usually a sign of recovery and chill. A drop means stress.
It means the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response, was highly activated.
But wait, I need to pause here and make sure I'm getting this right. You're saying this person read a poem, did a visualization, and his body reacted like he was being chased by a tiger. That seems a bit dramatic.
It sounds dramatic, but if you look at the biology, it makes perfect sense. The ego, that sense of I am a separate person, isn't just a philosophical idea. It's a heat regulation system. It's a boundary maintenance system.
It's survival.
Yes. It's evolutionarily designed to keep you alive. It defines what is me and what is not me.
Me is the thing that needs to be fed and protected, not me is the thing that might eat me.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
when you tell the brain, I am not separate from that wall, the amygdala doesn't hear, oh, cool, spiritual enlightenment. It hears integrity breach.
It thinks the hull of the ship has been punctured.
Precisely. The traveler logs this specific sensation of somatic recoil. He writes that every time he tried to visualize the in and I merging, his diaphragm would literally spasm.
Wow.
That is the vagus nerve hitting the brakes hard. It's the physical body saying, stop. If you merge with the wall, you cease to exist, you die.
So that HRV drop isn't just mental stress, it's the physiological cost of holding a paradox that violates your deep survival coding.
It is the sound of the software fighting the operating system.
The traveler also notes during this phase, the monkey mind intensified.
Of course it did. The brain threw up every distraction it could find, thinking about lunch, thinking about work, thinking about that embarrassing thing I did in 3rd grade.
Anything to stop the dissolution of the ego.
Anything to maintain the boundary.
And the poetic output from those first 2 days was completely chaotic. The source quotes lines like, "'cause the in is I am as wherever." I mean, it's grammatically broken. It looks like a corrupted text file.
Because the brain couldn't process the unity yet. It was trying to jam a non-dual concept into a dualistic language structure, and it just broke the syntax. It's quite literally a syntax error in the mind.
But then we hit days 3 and 4, the inquiry phase. And according to the logs, something shifts. The fever breaks.
The resistance gives way to pattern recognition. The log notes that the breath naturally evened out. And look at the HRV data for day 3. It didn't just recover to baseline, it rose 15% above baseline.
So they went from a near panic attack to super coherence in a matter of hours.
They entered a deep state of flow, The source also notes a 12% increase in alpha brainwaves during this phase.
Alpha waves, those are the bridge waves, right?
Yes, they are associated with relaxed alertness. It's the state you're in just before you fall asleep or when you're really in the zone doing creative work.
And this is where that kinship concept started to actually manifest in their vision.
Yeah.
The traveler wrote, "No other only reflection."
This is the turning point of the whole week. They stopped seeing the world as a separate entity containing them and started seeing it as a reflection of their own awareness.
Can we make that concrete? What does that actually look like for a person sitting in a room?
Imagine looking in a mirror. You know the face in the mirror isn't another person, it's you.
Right.
Now imagine looking at a tree or a car or a coffee cup on your desk and having that exact same internal sensation. That isn't a cup. That is a reflection of my capacity to see.
That sounds incredibly disorienting.
At first, yes. But the logs describe it as feeling familiar, like remembering something you forgot a long time ago. And look at the writing from day 4. The stanzas become coherent again. The language is flowing from a place of non-conceptual knowing.
They aren't thinking of the words anymore.
No, they are just catching them. Transcription, not composition.
Then we get to the deep end, days 5 and 6, the dissolution phase.
This is where the boundaries collapse completely.
The logs mention silence, but not just, "Oh, it's quiet in my bedroom." They describe long gaps between thoughts, 30 to 40 seconds of absolute mental silence.
For a modern human brain, 40 seconds of silence is an eternity.
It really is.
Try it sometime today. Just
Yeah.
try to go 10 seconds without a single thought. It's impossible for most of us.
And the physical sensation shifted too. They call it proprioceptive softening.
Right. So proprioception is your sense of where your body is in place. It's how you know where your hand is, even if your eyes are closed.
And this softened. What
Yeah.
does that mean?
The traveler felt a breath beyond physical form. They couldn't quite tell where their skin ended and the room began. The sensation of being contained inside a skull just dissolved.
That sounds terrifying to some people. Like, am I melting?
It would be terrifying if you fought it. But because they had already passed through the friction phase, the traveler describes it as a profound realization. Self endures as in, not separate from it.
They realized they didn't need the boundary to exist.
Exactly. The fear of death vanished because the boundary vanished.
And finally, day 7, the unity phase. The source calls it the game revealed.
This is the culmination of the experiment. The alpha dominance reached 52%, which is incredibly high for waking consciousness. But the insight here is the real gold. It's the practical takeaway.
The insight about the game.
Yes. The traveler realized that life, the struggle, the identity, the drama, the optimization we talked about earlier is a divine play.
And they identified the binding knot of suffering, the thing that makes the game feel miserable. What was it?
Addiction to certainty.
Oof. That hits home. I think everyone listening felt a little sting on that one.
We suffer because we demand to know exactly who we are, what is happening right now, and what comes next. We grasp for certainty like a drowning man grasping for a raft.
But the traveler defined freedom differently.
Yes, not as escaping the world, but as choosing without grasping.
So you can play the game. You can pay your bills, do your job, optimize your root square, hit the gym without being trapped by the illusion that it's serious in that heavy existential way.
Exactly. The duality self-rating in the log dropped to a 1 out of 10. Only the conceptual residue remained. They had achieved neuroplastic freedom.
It's an incredible journey to happen in just a week. But I want to pause here. I want to put on our skepticism hats, or at least our science hats.
Always a good idea.
Because this sounds mystical. The grin, divine play, unity. Is this just a guy getting high on his own oxygen supply in a dark room, or is there something biologically real happening here?
I'm really glad you brought that up because the source material is very insistent that this is applied neuroscience. We have to demystify the mystical because if we don't, it's basically useless to us.
So let's talk about the default mode network again, the DMN.
Right. Think of the DMN as a news ticker running at the bottom of your vision, 24/7.
Oh, like cable news.
Yes. Breaking news. You are awkward. Breaking news, you need to buy milk. Breaking news, that person looked at you weirdly in the hallway.
A lie simulator.
Yes. For most people, the DMN is hyperactive. It is constantly reinforcing the separation between me and everything else. And it burns a huge amount of glucose just keeping that story running all day.
So how does the grin experiment, staring at a door and reciting a rhyme, actually affect the DMN?
It uses a mechanism called sustained witnessing, that grin gaze we talked about. When you actively observe your own observation, when you look through the grin, you're essentially taking resources away from the DMN.
You're defunding the news station.
Exactly. You are literally reallocating blood flow and electrical activity in the brain. The brain cannot run the narrative self and the witnessing self at full power simultaneously. It just doesn't have the bandwidth.
So when you ramp up the witnessing, the DMN has to quiet down.
It's forced to. And when the DMN quiets down, that spacious awareness, that feeling of unity, moves from the background to the foreground.
It's not magic at all. It's a shift in neural resource allocation.
Yeah.
The peace isn't something you create out of thin air. It's what's left over when the noise stops.
Exactly.
And the poem itself, it has a logic to it, doesn't it? It's not just random words designed to distract you.
No, it's highly structured. The source describes the poem's structure as a spiral. It moves from the riddle, the atomic level question, who's the grin, to kinship, which is connection, then to the gateway of embodiment, and finally to unity.
So it trains the brain step by step, like a cognitive workout routine.
It trains the brain to hold opposites. And this is key. Our brains love binary logic, good or bad, self or other, in or out. It's efficient. It helps us survive in the wild.
But it limits us in the modern world.
Heavily. The poem forces the brain to hold in and I as the exact same thing. This creates a paradox. And the brain hates paradoxes. Usually it just crashes.
The blue screen of death.
Exactly. But if you sustain it, if you hold the paradox without looking away, without checking your phone, you develop cognitive flexibility.
You stretch the system.
You rewire the brain to be comfortable with ambiguity. You expand your operating system to handle non-binary data.
This connects back to something else in the source document, the metamatic system. We've talked in previous deep dives about the root square, leaves, branches, all these systems for building a functional life.
Right. Those are usually about building content, skills, habits, outputs, the stuff of life.
But the source says this experiment is the inversion kick.
Yes. Usually we think content is king. But this experiment flips it entirely. Content equals context.
Break that down for me. Content equals context.
It means that the things you do, the content, are identical to the space in which you do them, the context. You don't just solve the equation of your life figuring out how to be productive or how to be happy. You realize you are the equation.
You are the math itself.
You are the math.
Yeah.
And that realization completely changes how you solve the problems. You stop trying to constantly fix the numbers, and you start enjoying the elegance of the formula.
Which brings us perfectly to section 4, neuroplastic freedom and application. Because this is where the rubber meets the road. We have this high-level, beautiful realization, but what does it actually look like on a Tuesday afternoon when you're stuck in traffic?
Right.
Or when you're building IKEA furniture and everything is going wrong?
The IKEA test, the ultimate test of spiritual enlightenment.
There is a story in the source material that perfectly illustrates this. It's the story of the Allen Wrench Lord.
I absolutely love this story. It's honestly the highlight of the document for me.
Please walk us through this, because the name alone is incredible.
So the traveler is in a visualization during the later days, or maybe a lucid dream state, and they are fighting a final boss, like a video game boss. And this boss is a giant, jagged, terrifying figure made entirely of metal. He is the Allen Wrench Lord.
I think we've all met the Allen Wrench Lord. It's that voice on a Sunday afternoon when you're building the shelf, you have one screw left, nothing fits, and you think, my life is falling apart because of this particle board?
That's him. He is the avatar of resistance to necessity. He represents the struggle of assembling life, the endless maintenance of the house we talked about, and the travelers fighting him, trying to defeat the struggle.
Standard video game logic. Kill the boss to win the game.
Exactly. Slash him with the sword of productivity. But then, because of the grin training, the traveler has this non-dual realization mid-fight. They stop fighting. They look at the Allen Wrench Lord and they see something completely different.
What do they see?
They realize he's just scared.
The big scary metal boss is afraid.
He's terrified. And he's terrified of obsolescence. Think about it. If you actually finish optimizing your life, if the house was built and perfect, if there were no more problems to solve, what is the tool for?
Wow. If the problem goes away, the wrench is completely useless?
Exactly. The tool defines itself by the problem. If the problem is solved, the tool dies. So the Allen Wrench Lord, which is the part of your ego that loves to fix things, is actually subconsciously creating problems just so it has something to do.
So the part of me that is obsessed with fixing my life, the part reading all the productivity books, actually secretly wants me to stay broken? Because otherwise it doesn't have a job?
Boom. That is the trap. That is the wall of optimization.
Mm.
And the only way out isn't to fight the wrench, but to thank it.
So what does the traveler do? He turns the Lord into...
Alan, the friendly wrench.
Just Alan.
Just Alan. And the lesson is profound. You stop fighting the tools of your life. You stop fighting the structure. You play with it. The structure isn't an enemy to be defeated. It's a friend to be used.
That is the ultimate shift from work to play.
Precisely. It changes everything about how you approach your day.
There is another dimension mentioned here in the application section, the Instagram reality.
Oh, yes. The traveler has a vision of an Instagram feed world where everything is perfectly curated.
Which sounds like a nightmare for some people.
A prison for the mind. We think the algorithm is the enemy. We talk constantly about escaping the matrix.
But the realization here is different.
The realization is that escaping the algorithm prison isn't about deleting the app. It isn't about throwing your phone in the ocean and running away to a cave. It's about realizing you are the programmer.
You are the programmer, not the user.
Exactly. When you realize, in equals I, you realize that the feed, the world you see, is just a reflection of your own consciousness. You don't have to react to it. You don't have to be triggered by it. You can just observe it. You can scroll without being scrolled.
The source calls the ultimate achievement of the experiment, quote, touch grass, metaphorically.
Which is the most Gen Z way to describe enlightenment I have ever heard. But it fits perfectly. It means grounding the metaphysical realization in physical reality. Don't just stay in the cloud. Touch the grass. Be here.
So for the listener who is, driving to work right now or doing the laundry and maybe can't take 7 days off to listen to trigger music and stare at a door, how do they apply this? We need practical steps.
You don't need 7 days to start. The source actually gives us practical steps that you can do in 5 minutes.
Let's break them down. Practice 1 is the grin gaze.
This takes 5 minutes. You sit facing a door or window, any threshold will work. You chant the first stanza of the poem, "Who is the grin? For in is I."
And then what?
You ask silently, where does seeing occur? But here is the trick. You don't look for an intellectual answer. You don't say, oh, in my brain or in my eyes. You just rest in the space where the answer dissolves. You look at the door and try to find the literal line where you stop and the door begins.
It's about finding the seam in reality.
And realizing there isn't one.
Okay. Practice 2 is the kinship breath.
This is even simpler. You can do this in a meeting. You could do this right now while listening. When you inhale, mentally note in. When you exhale, mentally note I.
In I.
And as you do it, feel the sameness of the exchange. The air coming in from the world becomes I. The I breath goes back out to in. It physically demonstrates that you are an open system. There is no wall.
And practice 3, game release journaling.
This is for when you are stressed. When the Allen wrench Lord is yelling at you, you ask yourself one single question. What certainty am I addicted to right now?
That's a sharp question. Give me an example of how that plays out.
Let's say you're angry at your boss. You ask, what certainty am I addicted to? Maybe the answer is, I'm addicted to the certainty that he is wrong and I am right. Or I'm addicted to the certainty that this job is trapping me.
And once you identify the addiction,
You can release the grasp. You can see it as part of the game. You can say, okay, that's the level I'm playing right now. It stops being an existential crisis and starts being a puzzle.
it shifts the whole paradigm of self-improvement from fixing a broken machine to playing a complex game.
It really does. And that is a much, much more fun way to live.
So let's bring this home. We've covered the poem, the data, the neuroscience, and the redemption of Alan the Wrench. What is the final synthesis here?
The journey we've described today, from the friction of day 1 to the flow of day 7, is a map. It shows us that the frustration you feel, that wall of optimization we talked about at the start, it's real. But the way over the wall isn't to build a higher wall.
It's not about buying a better planner.
No. It's to realize the wall is made of the same stuff as you. It's about remembering what was always there.
Yeah.
The source says it beautifully. The experiment didn't create the light. It cleaned the window.
I love that. The light was always there. We just had too much grime on the glass.
Exactly. The structure was fine. You just forgot how to look through it.
And we have a challenge for the listener. Because we don't want you to just listen to this, nod your head, and then go back to pacing around your perfectly optimized house.
Right. We challenge you to try the 7-day challenge. You don't have to go into a cave. Just take 5 minutes every morning. Recite the poem, do the green gaze, and track one thing.
What are they tracking?
Track the glitches. Just notice where the distinction between in and I wavers. Notice when you forget that you are separate from the music you're listening to. Notice when the Allen wrench Lord shows up.
Just catch the grin in the act.
Exactly. Be the scientist of your own experience. Take the data.
I'm going to leave you with the closing lines of the poem because I think they sum it up better than we ever could. In the heart of in, the one is whole, and whole is one.
Beautiful.
Now, I want you to take that with you this week. Next time you feel like you are just the maintenance guy of your own life, ask yourself what you're trying to fix and who is really holding the wrench. Keep exploring the deep end, everyone, and say hi to Alan for us. We'll see you next time.
See you there.